Apparently, there were some moves that the Florida Panthers have made this weekend to help them in contention for a possible Stanley Cup run. We're going to discuss some of the trades that the Florida Panthers did this past weekend and more with Frank Rekas of PantherParkway.com, all on today's episode of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome into this Monday, March 21st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando from PantherParkway.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. Don't forget to also follow the national show, Locked On NHL, and the Crosscheck NHL show with Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark. We'll be covering all the regular season activities around the National Hockey League. So, Cats fans, it's been a wild weekend. After the Florida Panthers had their win against the Anaheim Ducks on Friday night, a 3-0 win, shutout win. The Florida Panthers only allowed 17 shots on goal. Spencer Knight, first ever shutout at the NHL level, had 2 of them in the AHL earlier this year. But that, honestly, that is probably the most least relevant story as far as the result of that game. What mostly happened this weekend is a big splash for the Florida Panthers, acquiring forward Claude Giroux of the Philadelphia Flyers, a longtime captain for the Flyers, in exchange for Owen Tippett, a 2024 first and a 2023 third-round pick. And this is the splash that the Florida Panthers have been waiting for. And here to discuss this trade with the Philadelphia Flyers, and a move that has definitely boosted the Florida Panthers' chances in a possible Stanley Cup run. It is the former host of Locked On Panthers. It is Frank Rekas. Frank, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me, Armando. It's great to be on, as always, and glad to see the show doing well, that you have picked it up and taken the reins over quite nicely. So good job for you.
Thank you so much, Frank. And of course, you and Josh for paving the way prior to that. But we have some trades to talk about. The Panthers, right before the weekend started, of course, the trade for Frank Vetrano in exchange for a 4th-round pick, using that 4th-round pick to get Ben Chiarot, which was the deal with that was when the Florida Panthers originally made that deal, the rumors around Claude Giroux right before that, as soon as they made this move for Ben Chiarot, I think there was a general consensus around the NHL and even the fan base of the Florida Panthers, anyone who covers them, knowing that it wasn't going to be an offer that was going to be extremely overwhelming to try to get someone like Claude Giroux. And there was a time where I was thinking that there is still a chance for Claude Giroux, but are the Panthers going to outbid somebody? And chances are they did it without outbidding somebody. What was your reaction when the Florida Panthers pull it off, and when did it feel real to you?
Well, this is what we call going for it. And I don't think for those of us who follow the Panthers for all the years have ever been in a spot where they've actually done anything even remotely close to this at the trade deadline. We've picked up a couple players here and there. I remember the last big splash a few years ago when Talon picked up Teddy Purcell. Was it Jacob Kindle? I think a defenseman, and there was a third guy. And
Yuri Hudler.
Yeah. All right, that was okay. But this is something way out of the ordinary. And man, got to give Bill Zito a ton of credit for being able to pull this off. And I don't know if you caught it or if anybody else caught it, but there came a point between Fletcher and the Flyers when, they told him that he wasn't going to come back next year. So he was just like, you know what, you want to trade me? I'm going to Florida. That's the only place I'm going. So that was awesome that we pulled this off. And we're getting a hell of a player. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's just so hard to process too, that this longtime player, a guy who has helped his team get to the Stanley Cup final, didn't win. They lost to your Blackhawks, but this longtime player, this franchise of the Florida Panthers being, let's call it like it is, like hot garbage for like a decade plus, not making the playoffs, spot playoffs appearances here and there. And now this team is in a put themselves in a position to acquire that big fish, even if it's just a rental, even if it's just half the salary. The fact that experience is there, and the fact that man, a captain, a former captain too, who knows how to lead men as well, is coming to this team. And this is the thing: face-off numbers for the Florida Panthers aren't the best, and Claude Giroux is one of the best players in the NHL still, even at his age, in the dot. But he doesn't necessarily need to play all the time at center. He could be shifted to the wing. He's done that a little bit later in his career. But it also gives them that time late in games, especially in their own zone, that if they need a face-off win to clear the puck in like a 2-1, if they're leading 2-1, Claude Giroux is definitely one person that you're going to have on the ice most times.
He's a very versatile guy, a very good two-way hockey player. He's good defensively. He's got great hands, great offensive instincts. But you bring up an excellent point, and him being really good in the face-off. I think his career average is somewhere around 55 or 56% of the face-offs that he's won. And those defensive zone face-offs late in the game, he could be the extra guy out there just in case Barkov or somebody else gets kicked out. He could be the guy that could come in and cover if that were to happen. I'm sure you'll see him a little bit on the penalty kill, maybe a little bit here on the power play, but very, very versatile. Doesn't have to play center, and obviously he's had a big role where he's been, and I think he's probably A-okay not being the top dog, because we know Barkov and then Huberdeau are the top dogs here. So he wants to win a cup. There's some other veterans here as well, Joe Thornton, Patrick Hornqvist. So he's not coming to a bunch of kids that don't know what's Stanley Cup hockey is all about. He's coming to a well-mixed team that is looking like a very heavy favorite now.
Mm-hmm. And career in the face-off circles around 55%. So his playoff numbers. Let's discuss a little bit about his playoff numbers. 73 points in 85 games, 25 goals, 48 assists. Face-offs as well, just under 52%. Shooting percentage, just over 13. So definitely a guy who's going to really help this team. And let's also talk a little bit about how, even though there's so much flexibility within so many different players on this lineup, I think about sometimes like some short-term fixes as well, because Anton Lundell still isn't back neither. He's not on injured reserve, but he's definitely going to. Claude Giroux can definitely fill in for like a line for like at least like a little bit. Sure. For Anton Lundell's spot, even if it's like putting him in the third line for a little bit until Lundell comes back and he could be on the wing with Barkov. You also have options of putting him on the wing next to Barkov and then Duclair there. You also have experience with Duclair being on the Barkov line and putting Giroux on that second line. So you could even write on a board and you could think of 10 plus combinations that you could put this forward group with the addition of Giroux.
Yeah, it's a great thing to have to move this guy almost anywhere at forward and center, first line, second line. I mean, what a great position Bruno is in to have this roster that he has right now. I mean, I I think the Panther fan base is really giddy at this point, and everybody is expecting a long playoff run, and there's no reason that we shouldn't have it. We get everybody healthy and everybody stays healthy. I know we've got the Ekblad injury to worry about, but I think we've got enough that we've picked up and enough, already on the roster that we ought to be able to, compensate for that.
Absolutely, and we're going to discuss more on Aaron Ekblad's injury, the reason for the Florida Panthers going for it this year as opposed to waiting until next year to give up more pieces of their future drafts. We're going to talk all about that. But first, we want to tell you all about Athletic Greens. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole foods, superfoods, probiotics, adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, aging, all the things. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially heading into the flu and cold season. It's just one scoop of cold water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. Take it easy. Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Take ownership of your health and pick up the ultimate nutritional insurance. Back on the Monday, March 21st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. I'm Armando. I got Frank Rekas here from PantherParkway.com to discuss the trades that the Florida Panthers have made. So I think about so many different things, and I try to think about the mindset of Bill Zito going into this trade deadline. And I think that he chose this specific year to really put all his chips forward is some of the cap struggles or troubles is a better way to put it, that the Florida Panthers will have to face this coming offseason and into next year. You think of Keith Yandel's buyout, the majority of it on the books. Bob's contract is still huge, regardless of whether the Florida Panthers win a Stanley Cup or not. It's still a big part of it. Barkov's first year of his deal is going to be kicking. Thankfully, the new contract of Jonathan Huberdeau, if the Florida Panthers are able to re-sign him, won't come until the year after. It'll be the last year of Mackenzie Weegar's contract. He's going to have to get paid as well. So I think Bill Zito really saw that situation and said, we might not be able to be as aggressive next trade deadline. So this is the time to do it. So I really think that's really the thought process of like where Bill Zito is when it comes to creating something for this year's Panthers.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with the players that you mentioned, Huberdeau and Weegar. It's not necessarily a question of do we want to sign them. I'm sure we do. The question is, are we going to have the cap room to sign them? And, who knows how much higher the cap is going to go over the next couple of years. Hard to say. It was kind of flat as we went into this season. May not go up too much more next year. So, everything is kind of in limbo. So he's going about it the right way. He's going about it the way that we wanted everybody else to go about it in years previous, but we weren't in a position either because, we weren't winning or we just weren't an attractive place to come. But who would have thought that a player like Claude Giroux wants to come to South Florida to play for the Panthers and have a chance to win the Stanley Cup? I mean, that right there kind of tells you the progress that we've made in a very short time with Bill Zito here.
Winning is the ultimate cure. And I think of the trade deadline in the most recent years. I kind of think about the trade deadline like kind of how I think of the housing market right now, how right now it's a seller's market right now. And the NHL trade deadline is the same thing. There's going to be one team out there who has tried to force hands of other teams, their negotiating power, saying, you want us to take this salary, pay up with a first-round pick. And there's going to be a team who's going to take advantage of all those assets gained. But there's also the other side of things. There could be an opportunity for any of these teams buying, that could fall flat on their face. And that is also the scariest thing about this, and that's kind of why I like a little bit of the terms based on the Giroux trade, because you got 2 prospects back. You didn't deplete your farm completely. They got some prospects that don't have the best numbers down in the AHL, but you still get a little bit of bodies there and a little bit of term and team control for them. So there's chances for one of those 2 things happening. And Bill Zito, he was very stubborn on not trying to give up someone like a Maki Samoskevich and Alexei Heponiemi, who Alexei Heponiemi scored on Saturday for the Checkers. So it's crazy to think that all the different variables and the different circumstances that something like COVID-19 brought to the cap, and how creative GMs need to be.
Oh, yeah. And, I think you'd agree the trade deadline usually doesn't pan out the way a team really wants it to when they've acquired players. And most of the time, if you're a team that's contending for the cup, you're just putting in a piece here, a piece there. You're looking for a role player on the 4th line. You're looking for an extra or a third pairing defenseman. Well, that's not what the Panthers did. Not with Claude Giroux. He's a top 6 player that's going to get into the lineup and play top 6 minutes. Ben Chiarot could be a second pair defenseman, and he adds an element that is, certainly needed in the playoffs. Some physicality, some toughness, and it's going to be needed. So Panthers went a little bit against, I don't want to say against the grain, but that's what I'm going to say. But they're in prime position to do it. There aren't many other teams that are in prime position like the Panthers are to make this kind of move.
And before Aaron Ekblad even went on injured LTIR to relieve $7.5 million of the cap, when the Florida Panthers were making that trade for Chiarot, they were just minus $400,000. So at that time, I was thinking, well, somebody needs to be placed on waivers and to get that relief for the Panthers. The Florida Panthers get that salary relief with LTIR, and they get defenseman Robert Hegel in exchange for a 6th-round pick, which is the pick that the Florida Panthers got in the Sam Bennett trade. So they've been able to get assets from one trade, even if it's a late-round pick, to get a little bit of depth. I'm not expecting Robert Hegel to have a big role in the Panthers, maybe play a few games while Aaron Ekblad is recovering, because the Florida Panthers also got Petteri Lindbaum in that signing just a few weeks ago. So there's different mixing and matchings that you do. Of course, there's still the development of Lucas Carlson as well. So there's a little bit of mixing and matching even on the D pairs. I mean, I think about like where Chiarot can fit in. It with a healthy Ekblad, you would think that Gudas would go on the 3rd pairing with Montour probably. But in the meantime, maybe we could see a Chiarot Gudas pairing, and we could see 2 big physical guys on one line, or the Florida Panthers can separate them one in the second, one in the third. So every time a different D-corps comes, you'll have that physical guy on the back end. And that's just continued to be that perfect situation that this team finds themselves in.
Yeah, I mean, imagine Gudas and Chiarot, as a shutdown pair in the playoffs. There's a lot of pieces, a lot of moving around. That's really, really good flexibility. And I'll make a joke here in case a couple of listeners that I've been talking to over the weekend, this is a far cry from the days of when we had guys like Mathieu Biron and Branislav Metse on the back end. So we've got some guys that are, heavy, but we've got some guys that are skilled, and, we're in a perfect position to have some depth, but to also, perform at a level that we've never performed at before. So it's a really good outlook here.
Let's take a little bit of a look at Cap Friendly. Gonna share the screen right here for everyone. Even with all these moves, $5.4 million of deadline cap space still, and there's word that the Florida Panthers could still even go after a goalie depending on the health of Sergei Bobrovsky. For anyone watching this on the YouTube page, I'm on Cap Friendly, so you can see it on the YouTube page. But look at this. Look at the draft picks or lack thereof of the next three years. No one's in the next 3 years. 1, 2, which is a 2023 2, and 2 threes, all in the first 3 rounds. Three picks out of a possible 9 in the next year's draft. So in the next 3 drafts for the Panthers, just bold for a Bill Zito to just say, hey, this is our window, and hey, these players might not arrive at the NHL just yet. It's going to take a while.
Yep.
And this is the time. And of course, with some of the, of course, one with the LTIR for Ekblad, they could possibly recoup some picks. I don't know how early they would be, but there's still a chance to recoup some. And of course, the Florida Panthers as well do have this offseason, which right now they have a like $3 million in cap space going into next season, but there's also the possibility of moving contracts like Patrick Hornquist with term, Brandon Montour as well next offseason. So cup or not, Bill Zito is going to have to be creative next offseason as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that they're, going to consider that going forward. I mean, Monday will be here in, a short period of time. I would be pleasantly surprised if we were able to pick up, a second round pick some way, somehow. I don't know that that's going to happen. I certainly don't think we're going to grab a first because, we're not really giving anything up that's going to bring a first round pick up. But look, he's got to go for it. I totally agree with where we are, right now. I mean, if this wasn't the year to go, then I don't know when it is. You just have to pull out all the stops and worry about the draft picks, another time. Worry about, building the draft pool later on. We'll somehow manage. And if a Stanley Cup comes to South Florida, I don't think we're going to care too much if we don't have a first round pick in the next couple of years. We'll survive.
Sometimes it takes just one. Sometimes it just takes a few playoff series winning in order to make your stamp in a damn market.
Right.
And even just pictures of outside the Miami arena of people packing it for 96, it's like it can happen all over again. I mean, my memory is vague at that age, like 3 years old. So, but all I can refer to is pictures. So, win a playoff series, you make a stamp in your community, and it makes people definitely hop on the bandwagon. That's for sure. And I hope South Florida should not only share this podcast with your friends, but share the sport of hockey with your friends and this team and watching this team, because it's going to be definitely a fun ride. But in the next segment, we're going to discuss more about the rest of the league to this point in time and the division of how it's going to be, how the fellow division rivals have fared in their fair of trades during this trade deadline. But first, we're going to tell you all about BetOnline. It's that time of year where college basketball tournament is finally upon us. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net is the #1 source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. And also to remind you that this episode is also brought to you by Built Bar. And this is the time of year where I've given up on all my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right, thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried the Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, marshmallowy, not just a protein bar. They're a treat, covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, Puffs included. Low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bar with these. They're better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere between 200 to 300 calories. At Built Bar, they're all about taste. They make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. I don't know how, but they pull it off every time. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. Back on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast on this Monday, March 21st edition of the show. I'm Armando Velez. I got Frank Rekas of Panther Parkway here to continue this conversation about the Panthers and the rest of the division. So we're recording this on a Sunday. Right now on my computer it says 7:25 p.m. So anything that outside of this recording might be some moves might have happened by the time this gets released. But the Atlantic Division specifically is really rich when it comes to trading for defensemen. The Boston Bruins trade for Hampus Lindholm and then give him a contract extension. Toronto, they traded for Mark Giordano, who for 2 second-round picks and a third. Of course, Panthers trade for Ben Chiarot. This just goes to show how much offensive firepower this division as a whole has. I mean, think about just the top 3 currently in the standings right now. I know Boston has a possibility of passing Toronto with their issues in goal, but it just, once again, it just goes to show how rich the scoring is in this division.
Well, and the other thing too is defense wins in the playoffs. You have to have good defense. If your blue line is made up of a bunch of offensive, talented, puck-moving defensemen who are not real defensemen, you're going to find yourself in some very difficult situations. So it's interesting that all the top 3 or 4 teams, are looking at defensemen to build up on the back end, and not just any defenseman. I mean, there's some real special players that are coming on. Giordano is a very good hockey player, even at his age. I think he's 37 years old, but he's
38.
38. All right. He's still got a lot left in the tank. Lindholm is a very, very good defenseman. I'm surprised that Boston gave him a extension right away. Chiarot, he comes with mixed reviews during the season, but I think he had a heck of a playoff last year for Montreal. So I think the Panthers are going to like, and the fans are going to like what they see out of Chiarot. But again, defense wins in the playoffs. You need to have good defensemen.
Mm-hmm. And still, this coming with the fact that the Florida Panthers still haven't faced the Maple Leafs this season. I mean, you also think about, we talked about this pre-recording, but the Tampa Bay Lightning making a big trade for Brandon Hegel, a guy who has pretty good term on his contract at $1.5 million, and the Tampa Bay Lightning go ahead and trade for 2 firsts, and just a guy that they could fill in for so cheap, giving that man. And this is a team that lost a whole third line in the offseason. I mean, Gord is part of the expansion draft. Barclay Goodrow signs with the gets traded to the New York Rangers. And who's that? Someone was signed with the Flames. I forget his name.
Yeah, I know.
I'm blanking on the name, but Blake Coleman. Blake Coleman.
There you go.
He signed with the Flames. So, just as somebody who also follows the Chicago Blackhawks, someone with Hegel being traded to the Tampa Bay Lightning, where do you think Brandon Hegel slides as far as the Lightning lineup?
Well, in Chicago, it wasn't very difficult for him to play on the second line. Some nights he played on the first line, but I view him slotting right in on the third line with Tampa. He's a good hockey player. He's hard-nosed. He's full of energy. All of a sudden, he can score. He's got 20 goals this year. Kind of came out of nowhere. A middle or low, very low level draft pick, but he was a fan favorite. He was shocked that he got traded. He didn't expect to get traded, but hey, you go from a team that's at the bottom of the conference to a team that's going to contend for a top playoff spot. You'll get over it at some point. But they got him on a really good contract. I think he's at that $1.5 million for 2 years after this as well. So good luck to him. Tampa's going to like him.
Yeah, and Brandon Hegel, originally drafted by Buffalo, 6th-round pick. So traded to Chicago in 20. He signs his ELC with Chicago. Does not get traded. So his contract expired there. So pretty much made a name of himself after not getting qualified an offer for Buffalo, and then now he's worth 2 first-round picks. As far as As far as Boston and Toronto, Toronto's kind of free falling. They've have injuries right now with Jack Campbell. David Krejci, there's this possibility that he could sign back with the Bruins after coming back from Czechia. Which one of those do you still see? Which one of those do you see as a bigger threat to fall into that 3 seed, or do you see Toronto hanging on?
Well, Toronto has historically over the last few years had trouble with defense. That's why they've picked up Giordano. The goaltending situation, I mean, I don't know. Did they pick up Harry Sateri, ex-Panther legend, or they did pick him up? Okay, so, goaltending for them is going to be an unknown at this point. So I'm not sure they get out of the first round again, and just what their fan base needs to suffer through another first-round loss, and they'll continue to be, miserable. I think Boston is a bigger threat just because of all the playoff experience that they have. I think they're pretty healthy, and adding Lindholm just makes them stronger than they already were. So they're coming at it like the Panthers are from a position of strength, and I think they might actually be a first round opponent for us if they don't pass up Toronto.
Yeah, I believe right now it's Washington that has the final playoff spot. I need to double check, but I think it's Washington that holds that final one. It's going to be crazy right to the finish. The Panthers really find themselves in the driver's seat. I mean, I watched the end of that New York Rangers Tampa Bay Lightning game. Zibanejad had a game-winning goal with like 16 seconds left, and that right there alone is a big swing in the division. Yeah. That right there, along with all the trades, it's like the Florida Panthers have been given a key to a car that's unattended, and it's just like go in and run. Yeah. Just run away with it.
Right. It's theirs for the taking. They're a heavy favorite, with the additions that they've made. I wouldn't be surprised if there's one more little addition come tomorrow. Don't know who, not sure who. There's, talk about, should they go get a goalie? Should they not? And then if they do, who would you go get? But you said they've got what, $5 million of space?
Mm-hmm.
So, somebody could be picked up.
Maybe an Anton Forsberg of the Ottawa Senators, maybe another expiring contract.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I'm not going to entertain Marc-Andre Fleury for the Panthers. I'm not entertaining that. I'm not.
No, I'm not either.
I'll believe it until I see it. I'm not gonna. That one is just. I want Fleury. Honestly, I wouldn't mind Fleury being on the Oilers. I would love to see it.
He doesn't want to go there.
But he doesn't want to go there. But I know he's not going to the Capitals neither. If I were him, that's one I wouldn't go to.
No. And I think if he does go anywhere, he wants to go somewhere where he's going to get some playing time. I think if he comes here, he's really just going to be a backup to Bob, and I don't think that's what he wants. But
yeah, he if it were to win, and Chicago wants to respect the legend in Marc-Andre Fleury, so they want to do it right by him. But Frank, I want to thank you so much once again for joining on this episode of Locked On Florida Panthers podcast to talk about the trades that the Florida Panthers have made, their quest for the division, and hopefully more beyond that. So tell everybody where they can follow you online.
You can follow me at my Twitter handle, which is Frank Rekas. Pretty simple, and that's where you'll find me.
Awesome, and you'll see Frank talk all about Panthers as we continue this season and into the playoffs. So, thank you once again, Frank, for joining me on this episode of the. Thank you, and for everybody, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast so you'll be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On NHL and the Crosscheck NHL show with Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark. We'll be covering all the regular season activities around the National Hockey League. Some housekeeping notes for everyone listening on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. I will be going live at 3 p.m. on Monday, March 21st on the Locked On Florida Panthers YouTube channel, discussing where the Florida Panthers finished off their trade deadline. So make sure to follow the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast on YouTube, and also follow it on podcast form as well, as we will be discussing more about this week's practices, player acquisitions before they go on their next road trip over in Canada. So thank you, everybody, for listening. So I'm Armando Velez with Frank Rekas, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.